Hello and welcome to the Raw Review here on Wrestling with Regret. Well, I am quarantining on location this week, you might say. I'm here in the familiar locale of my in-laws' house in Oregon. Pretty much a straight shot from Reno to here, barely stopping and certainly sanitizing often. And we're here with some family members who have also been quarantining for several weeks. We're not going to interact with anyone else outside of the house or really do anything, no plans, just basically quarantining with a bit of a change of scenery. So next couple of videos for the week are going to come from here. But yeah, WWE is back doing live programming. Turns out all you have to do is have your wife start up a super PAC and then pledge millions of dollars to Florida for advertising, which then of course helps deem the company an essential business. Who knew that's all? I'm sure it's all coinky-dink, by the way. This, of course, comes after the news that a non-wrestling employee of the company had been diagnosed with COVID-19, and he had been part of the crew at WrestleMania 36 and all that, but he's fine now, and everything's hunky-dory. Just saying, God forbid, should a wrestler come down with COVID-19, this whole shit show is going to fall apart. But for right now, money talks and conflict of interest, what's that? The show opens up with a promo by the new champion, Drew McIntyre, who once again thanks the fans for their support. They show highlights of his match with the Big Show from last week, and he does running commentary on those highlights. He says that anyone who deserves a shot at the title will get one. Outcome Andrade and Zelina Vega. The two bring up their history at NXT from several years ago when they fought for the championship and Drew tore his bicep in that matchup, the match that Andrade won. And so they agree on a champion versus champion match on this night, and then Andrade closes things out by saying, "No more, Senor Nice Guy." I liked this opening bit. I liked Drew's opening promo. He has this kind of effortless charm when he talks to the microphone. It just feels like what he's saying is not forced. It's not ham-fisted. He's just really, almost like he's shooting from the hip here when he talks. And I really like that kind of delivery in my wrestlers. It doesn't sound too filtered or too scripted. So looking forward to seeing how this match is going to go. First match is a qualifier for the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. You got Asuka taking on Ruby Riott. I'll give them credit here because the three qualifying matches we saw with the ladies this week were all brand new matches, never done before, at least not to my knowledge at least. And I think they all, for the most part, they were entertaining to watch. This one I think was the strongest of the bunch though. Asuka dancing to Ruby Riott's music in the intro was great. Very hard-hitting stuff. We hadn't seen a lot of Ruby Riott since she's come back to TV, especially in singles action, so good to see her showcase what she can still do. In the end, Asuka wins with the Asuka lock, and she talks a bit of trash in Japanese after the match is over. We get a backstage VIP lounge with MVP, who announces 3 of the men's qualifying matches for Money in the Bank next week. You've got Aleister Black versus Austin Theory, Rey Mysterio versus Murphy, and himself, that's MVP, versus Apollo Crews. We then see Aleister Black taking on Oney Lorcan in singles action up next. This one didn't go quite as long as Aleister Black and Apollo Crews last week, but this is still pretty good stuff. Ultimately, Aleister wins with the black mask. And after the match, he's asked by the interviewer what his game plan next week for Austin Theory is, and he simply says, to win. We get a promo from the Raw Women's Champion, Becky Lynch. She talks about her match with Shayna Baszler at WrestleMania, saying that it was a battle of the mind, basically alluding that the demeanor she had the last several weeks, seemingly to be overconfident and cocky and possibly slipping, it was all an elaborate ruse to lull Shayna into a false sense of security, therefore winning the mind games, winning the match at Mania. She has a great line here. I might be butchering it here, where she says, "Somebody who was born to bully everyone will never beat someone who was born to survive everything." Great line. Apologies if I botched it though. She sends a message to the hypothetical winner of the Women's Money in the Bank match, saying that she'll shock the world yet once again when she beats that challenger. It was a very calculating, very confident promo here. If there's one thing you can take away from these empty arena Raws and SmackDowns, that the promo game has definitely gotten better generally across the board. We see Zelina Vega and Andrade once again. They're being interviewed backstage, and they're asked, does Drew McIntyre pose a threat to Andrade? Zelina puts over Andrade once again, saying he's been defending his US title month after month after month, except for that month he was off television, that is. And then basically they both wrap it up saying they're both confident that Andrade will beat Drew. Another women's Money in the Bank qualifier up next, Shayna Baszler versus Sarah Logan. Before the matchup, Shayna's asked very directly about Ronda Rousey's recent comments, where she basically says, screw the fans, and Shayna just responds with steely silence. The fact that they are bringing up those comments by Ronda at all leads me to believe that either it's been a work all along and they're building a storyline, or it's shooting themselves into a work and they're hoping to get a storyline out of this in the future. But we shall see how that plays out. Anyway, this match itself was pretty elementary. Shayna just dominates Sarah Logan, stomps on the elbow at one point, and Sarah sells it in a big way. The match is thrown out. The ring announcer might have been confused because he announced that Sarah Logan was the winner, which was not the case. And so Shayna wins. She's advancing the Money in the Bank. Makes you wonder if they're going to book Shayna in that match similar to what they did with her at Elimination Chamber, where she just like smokes everybody and just easily wins, trying to set up her and Becky at SummerSlam for a rematch. That's possible. I mean, it'd be kind of disappointing if it were a repeat of Elimination Chamber, but I wouldn't put it past them to do it. We get a shot of a very somber Seth Rollins backstage staring off in the middle distance. Doesn't say much in this little promo, if you want to call it that, where he says that at WrestleMania he lost to Kevin Owens and his career was crucified once again. Fade to black, go to commercial. Like, what? That was it? It's not the last time we'll see Seth on this night with his very short, to-the-point promos. We'll see where it all leads. Up next, Akira Tozawa takes on Austin Theory. Zelina Vega is on commentary for this matchup. Of course, she is Austin's new manager as of the week before WrestleMania. At one point in the match, Tozawa does a rolling senton from the apron on the outside, and Jerry Lawler calls it a ramen noodle moonsault. What the hell, Jerry? Theory wins the match with the ATL, and then afterward you've got Andrade and the Angel Garza showing up, and the three of them beat down Tozawa, further establishing this relatively newly created stable. Nice to see a manager-led stable in the company once again for the first time in a while, it feels like. Zelina has been working almost exclusively with Andrade forever now, and then she let Angel Garza into the fold once Andrade was suspended. They bring in Austin Theory as a replacement for Andrade, and so now they're just going, whatever, we're just going to roll with it and make it a whole group now. So now it's Angel and Theory and Andrade working together, and Zelina's leading them off, and I think it's great. I think it was only a matter of time before they would allow Zelina to expand her empire. I'm really excited to see what they do with this trio. I said last week that these folk are kind of a part of what I consider to be the future of the company, and so hopefully we'll see how they do in this position and if they're poised to continue to be the future. We see Rey Mysterio backstage talking about the Money in the Bank qualifier he has next week. Bring up a bit of a history lesson. Talk about how in 2010 he was on his second world title reign, but it ended once Kane cashed in his Money in the Bank, and he says that this time around he's going to win the briefcase and he'll be the one who does the cashing in. Nice little promo there. We then see somber Seth once again, who says that your Messiah has truly risen. I love cutting these promos about being risen and being crucified right after Easter. Angel Garza versus Tahuti Miles up next. The real highlight for this match for me was like the first 10 seconds, where at one point Tahuti goes for a leapfrog and Garza just comes off the ropes, jumps up and drop kicks him out of the sky. Great height by both guys and great bump by Tahuti as well. Garza wins with the wing clipper, and then afterward, very similar to what we saw with Akira Tozawa, where Garza and Theory and Andrade all beat down the poor hapless opponent. They do their kind of triple fist bump in the air, very reminiscent of the Shields thing. They don't own the rights to the fist bump thing, but it is Andrade's like single fist in the air times 3. I get it. So it makes you wonder, will this same kind of gang tactics work against Drew McIntyre later in the night? We get a backstage interview with the Kabuki Warriors, who don't say much, and then we see elsewhere backstage, Drew McIntyre is being interviewed. He shows off the scar from his bicep surgery at the hands of Andrade several years ago. He doesn't forgive or forget, and he promises he will hurt Andrade. Then we go to our final women's qualifier for the night for Money in the Bank. You have Nia Jax, who returned last week on Raw, taking on Kairi Sane. Kairi is flattened by Nia throughout, and we occasionally cut back to Asuka watching the monitor backstage, just shouting Kairi's name over and over again. Nia wins with the Annihilator, which is her military press into a Samoan drop to win. Nia advancing, curious to see where she will fit in, like what kind of crazy spot are they going to have her for Money in the Bank? Like, how is she going to fall off the top of the ladder and just eat it outside or something, probably? We get a pretty direct, to-the-point promo by the new NXT Women's Champion, Charlotte Flair. She says that Rhea Ripley made a big, brave choice in choosing her for her WrestleMania opponent, but in the end, Rhea lacked humility, and so does the rest of the women's division in NXT. She says that Io Shirai will be the next one to learn a lesson. Everyone bows down to the Queen. Woo, solid promo. We get a continuation of the Bobby Lashley-Lana storyline as Lashley takes on No Way Jose. The big story here is that Lana keeps shouting directions and commands at Lashley, who's had enough of it, tells her in no uncertain terms to shut up. And a more distraction from Lana almost cost him the match, but ultimately Lashley hits Jose with a spear to win. So we've got, this kind of like tense looks between Lana and Lashley. Is this a way for Lashley to turn babyface? And if he does, like, where are they going to go with that? Like, we've seen Lashley as a babyface not really working. I think he's been better as a heel on the whole than as a babyface, but maybe he hasn't been put in the right programs yet. We'll see where this goes. We get one more short promo from Somber Seth where he promises the non-believers he will stomp out all doubt. And then we go to our semi-main event, the Viking Raiders back in action against Cedric Alexander and Ricochet, who are wearing some nice matching gear tonight. I think Cedric and Ricochet looked really good both on offense and when it came to selling the strength of the Vikings here. They give the match a good amount of time here. Good to see all four guys get some time to really work and shine in this match, really show what they can all do. The Vikings win after hitting Cedric with the Viking experience. Didn't get quite all of it though. It was a good match. Definitely want to see more of Cedric and Ricochet as a team going forward. We then see these Street Profits and Bianca Belair being interviewed backstage, and the Street Profits are, they're laughing it up, they're being silly. They do a little history lesson on Vikings in general, and they do the more you know, big cheesy thumbs up, and pan out to reveal Bianca Belair looking completely mortified at what these guys are doing. She keeps them in line, saying, every time you fought the Viking Raiders, you've lost, and so you need to, if you want to keep those titles, you better shape up. So way to keep the guys in line. Main event time, champion versus champion as Drew McIntyre takes on Andrade in non-title action. Andrade, of course, coming out with all of his crew. A really cool cutoff by Andrade where he slams Drew's arm into the corner post, invoking the prior injury to Drew. Drew is able to take out all of Andrade's friends, obliterates Austin Theory's chest with a very loud chop. Andrade tries to hit the hammerlock DDT from up top like before at NXT, but Drew gets out of it, hits the Claymore to win the match here. Right after the match, Seth Rollins shows up, attacks Drew, hits him with 2 stomps as we fade to black. So yes, clearly setting up Drew versus Seth for Money in the Bank, and it's another example of seeing someone lose a big match at pay-per-view only to get a title match in the following pay-per-view match. But you know what? Much like this show, didn't really surprise me. My grade for this week's Raw is a D+. I thought, there were a couple of good matches here and there, and I thought the promos on the whole were pretty strong. Not quite as good as, say, like the promo quality for Mania build, but Mania's Mania, so take that into account. But yeah, there was just not one matchup where I thought, it was going to go the other way. For example, every match was like, oh, clearly obvious who's going to win that one. Even the ones that were pretty highly built throughout. It was just, this show, I'm not really feeling the vibe right now. I'm kind of over empty arena shows, quite honestly, and this was just another example of the burnout. But let me know what you thought about Raw this week in the comments section below, and give it a letter grade by going to the iCard in the corner of your screen. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.